Israel made light of it, and went their ways, one to his farm, another to his merchandise. And the remnant took his servants and entreated them spitefully and slew them. So in verse 6, when we begin to get a better understanding of what's going on here, prior to the Messiah coming, all right, he sent his prophets, Yirmiyahu, Yashra'al, Zechariah, Yekezikiel. All of these prophets we see that the Father sent, warning Israel about what was about to happen. What I need for you to do now is to return, because I want to bid you to this wedding. All this is about a wedding. From Genesis to Revelation, it's talking about a wedding. If you can't understand it from a marital perspective, he's talking to us in agricultural terms, and he's talking to us also through astronomy. So he's trying in every single which way that he can to communicate to you how important it is for you to observe these festivals. Very, very important, all right? So if you didn't understand it from an agricultural perspective, okay, then fine. Let's try to do it this way. If you don't understand it from astronomy perspective, okay, then fine. Let's try it this way. So he's trying so many different ways to communicate with his people, because this is talking about a wedding, all right? And this wedding is based upon a covenant, the vows. But we, the nation of Israel, we slew them. Verse 7, but when the king, which is the father, heard thereof, he was wroth. And he sent forth his armies and destroyed those murderers and burnt up their cities. Verse 8, then said he to his servants, the wedding is ready. All right, the wedding is ready. This is the reason why it is very important that we're prompt and that we're on time at the festivals. All right, because we have a habit of kind of lingering. We wait till the last minute, but this thing is going to be so precise where the scriptures tells us that this day should not overcome us as a thief in the night. We have to be ready at all times. All right, making sure that these festivals are observed, because it's just like you trying to catch a train. If that train conductor says, listen, you know what, the train is leaving at port A at 7:45, if you get there at 7:50, you're going to miss the bus. You missed your train, you're left, you're done. All right, so I'm kind of anal with this whole thing here. The festivals of Yahuwah are important. You have to be here. If you have to work, that's something different. Your car breakdown, that's something different. But 5 o'clock means 5 o'clock. Okay, we're going to have to make sure that we hold ourselves accountable to, I'm not saying this now, this is talking about the scriptures, all right? These are Yahuwah's feasts. So if anybody have any issues or whatever like that, you take that up with the Father. That has nothing to do with me. It's already outlined and sketched in stone here. Verse 8, it says now, in verse 8, then said he to his servants, the wedding is ready, but they which were bidden were not worthy. Verse 8, go you therefore into the highways, and as many as you shall find, bid to the marriage. All right? So those servants went out into the highways and gathered together all as many as they found, both bad and good, and the wedding was furnished with guests. Verse 11, and when the king came in to see the guests, he saw there a certain man which had not on a wedding garment. All right? So again, this is very, very important. We've been talking about for over 60 days. Over 60 days we've been talking about preparation, preparation, preparation. And the day of preparation started now doing Pesach. All right? Pesach is so important because it's leading now to greater events. That's the reason that I talked about now the Feast of Unleavened Bread. We know the whole thing about the Feast of Unleavened Bread, where we're not supposed to have any leaven or any lies or any guile, any hatred, anything like that amongst one another, because it's now alluding now to something bigger. But what's happening now is that, okay, we don't do personal attacks here or anything like that, but just in my own little personal situations and with conference calls and things of that sort, people were not able to stay consistent for 7 days. 7 days, they couldn't do it. For 7 days. you try to explain to people, you say, listen, you know what? We're in part of the festivals of the Feast of Yahuwah. Okay, this is the 7 days of unleavened bread. But what happens now is that I've noticed is that, again, this is just, what I'm dealing with, is that we claim to understand and know the scriptures, but what happens now is that when you start to get into your own little personal things or whatever might be going on in your lives, all of a sudden the scriptures don't pertain to me anymore. Listen, you know what? You better tell them that. Don't tell me that. It gets personal like that. They don't want to be corrected with the scriptures like this. And so again, we see a partiality with understanding the scriptures. And whether you're in the walk 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years, it means absolutely nothing if you're not applying what you're reading here. Okay, so we need that application. That's going to be very important. Nobody is immune from being corrected. And that's where our chastisement and learning comes from. So verse 10. So those servants went out into the highways and gathered together, and as many as they found, both bad and good, and the wedding was furnished with guests. And when the king, which the father, came into to see the guests, he saw that there was a certain man which had not on the wedding garment. And he said unto him, Friend, how camest thou in hither, not having a wedding garment? And he was speechless. Then said the king to the servants, Bind him hand and foot, and take him away, and cast him into outer darkness. There should be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen. The reason why I wanted to bring this scripture out is to try to get people to understand the importance of marriage. All right? You don't want to be in a situation, okay, at the last day where the father's going to come up and say, listen, you know what? You're here without a garment. Okay? The books are open, all right? I see there were some things that after rehearsal, and you blatantly, okay, denied the scriptures here, you're here without a garment. Take that particular individual, bind them, and throw them to outer darkness. That's how serious this walk is. You must follow all of the laws, statutes, commandments. This is rehearsal. If you get it wrong, okay, fine, we'll make up for it next year. But there's a word in Hebrew is called kata'ah, which means to sin. But there's a word pasha, which means to deliberately sin, which is different. To deliberately sin, and then I'm starting to see some things like that happen where there's certain brothers and sisters that say, listen, you know what, I'm a Hebrew Israelite, so that's pretty much my scapegoat there, and I'm good to go. So if you're getting now the whole thing about applications, all right, very important. The book of Matthew, the 25th chapter. The 25th chapter. Again, you're talking about covenants. You're talking about vows. You're talking about a marriage. We have another parable here. Then shall the kingdom of Shamayim be likened unto 10 virgins. All right, 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. And I think that's going to be the title of today's show. It's going to be called Shavuot and the Bridal Chamber. All right, the Bridal Chamber. Which took forth their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom, and 5 of them were wise and 5 were foolish. They that were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps, while the bridegroom tarried. Verse 5 is going to be very important. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on the stages of marriage. All right, there's stages to marriage. We have to understand now, or understand now, what does it mean when it says that the bridegroom tarries? So just hold on for a minute there. And while the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight, please remember what I'm about to read here, because it's going to come up later on in the lesson here. At midnight, there was a cry made, Behold, the bridegroom cometh. Go you out to meet him. Now, if we had to look at the festivals of Yahuwah, we have something happening in the 7th month, called the month of Tishri. We have what we call Yom Teruah, which is the blowing of the trumpets, which makes the announcements of the coming of the king. So, What we have here is that we want to make sure that there's oil always in our lamp. Always be ready, because you don't know the hour. Because it made mention now that the bridegroom tarried, and we need to know why the bridegroom tarried. All right? Now, verse 7. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said unto the wise, Give us of your oil, for our lamps are going out. But the wise answered, saying, No, not so, lest there be not enough for us and you, but go you rather to them that sell and buy for yourselves. Yashra'al is going to get to the point, all right, where the doors are going to be shut. Just as simple as that. And this is the reason why we're so adamant about making sure that we understand the festivals. If we can get a nice grip or a handle on understanding the festivals, the rest of the walk should be pretty easy. If we can just understand the festivals, how the Father has them set up, because the scriptures tells us in the book of Bereshit, the first chapter, verses 14 and 15, it makes mention of the word seasons, and the word seasons is moed. So we know that a salvation plan existed from the very beginning for the nation of Yashra'al. We always say that. Verse 10. And while they went to buy, okay, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went in with him. Listen to this now, verse 10. And while they went to buy, so the five went to buy oil, all right, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready, okay, went in with them to the marriage, and the door was shut. All right? The door was shut. Verse 11. Afterward came also the other virgins, saying, Sovereign, sovereign, open to us. But sovereign said, he answered and said, Verily, I say unto you, I know you not. Don't even know you. And we don't want to be in that position where at the last minute the Father is like, no, I don't even know you. So we have to stay consistent in this walk, because we don't know when that shofar is going to be blown. We say, listen, you know what? It's time to get our acts together now. It's time for the marriage. And you don't slipped up. All right? You don't slipped up. You don't went back into the world. Everything that you have done, okay, righteous, from, let's say, from 1992 to 2016, the Messiah comes in the year 2018, you done went back into the world, and you only been back into the world for 1 year, but you have like a 16, 17-year walk with the Father. All of that is now done. Done. It's a wrap. You have to stay consistent with this walk here. Okay, this is not church. Church might allow that. Everything will be all right. But this is not the zone here, right? This is not church. You want to go to church, you can go down there to TV Jakes and all these other guys, and they can work something out with you. But that's not what I'm reading here in Scripture, all right? We would have to be consistent with the walk. Verse 10, but he answered and said, Verily I say unto you, I know you not. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. For the kingdom of Shamaim is as a man traveling into a far country, who calleth his own servants and desire unto him his goods. So that's going into another parable. But I just wanted to bring out again the importance of making sure that we understand the importance of staying consistent in the walk. And you've done an excellent job. A real good job bringing out the importance of covenants and how we must stay consistent in the walk. I think there was something else I wanted just to touch on. I think that might have been about it. So, I have some notes here, all right, that I want to bring to everybody's attention. I'm going to do a little reading, and then I'm going to go to some scriptures to back everything up. Watch how things sound real familiar, okay? Real familiar. Now, we're talking about the Yahudim's marriage, is what I'm going to call this. This is how a marriage works, all right? Marriages were normally set up and executed according to a plan that fitted the needs of the whole society of the Yahudims. All right. So this whole thing about I fell in love and all this other stuff, this is pretty much what we hear in Western society. But from an Israelite, a Hebraic perspective, watch the definition again. Marriages were normally set up and executed according to a plan that fitted the needs of the whole society of the Yahudim. We're all responsible for one another. All right, so he's tall, dark, and handsome, whatever the case might be, that's fine. That's cool. But what we're trying to get sisters to understand is that, you know what, there should be something else also that you're looking for in a relationship. Okay, because Torah is going to be very, very important. So the society of the whole is very important. Now, when a young man saw a girl he consulted with his father. That's the way that it worked, all right? You don't go and pull the girl and start doing all this other stuff behind the father's back. The daughter is under the father's covering. All right, so order has to be, don't forget that there has to be order. This is what we're talking about here. We're talking about order here tonight. When a young man saw the girl he wanted, he consulted with his father about the idea of marrying her. Sometimes the father picked a girl, and which was, was kind of necessary. When the bridegroom's father approved, again, the father had to approve. When the bridegroom's father approved the choice of the young man, he would go back. The young man now would go to the bride's house and speak with the father. So you see the order here. I like a particular sister here. All right, listen, you know what? I go to the father and I say, listen, you know what? I would like to go into a betrothal stage with your daughter here. So there's law and order and instructions that we must follow in order for this whole thing to work. And the young man would speak with the father, and the father really counted for something, because fathers really counted for something in Israel. Now, at the bride's house, the young man would do three very important things, all right? He would make a covenant with the bride, and a covenant is like Aluf here, Rav Aluf said, that it's a contract, it's an agreement, it's a promise that the man is not going to make with the young lady. So again, he would make a covenant with the bride, which is a contract. Now, you talked about the salt covenant. Okay, so now the young man would drink a cup of wine with her, which sealed the contract. All right? He would pay a price for her. And the reason why he would pay a price for her, the reason I'm going a little bit too fast for her. Slow down a little bit. Her father would be entitled to money for his daughter. A young man had to be very serious about getting married because he had to make a sacrifice. And as we know in older times, we read the scriptures now, when a man had a daughter, he suffered sometimes like financially, is because the sons were important, because the sons were actually the laborers. They would actually go out to the field and work and do those type of things there. The women, he wasn't a burden. I'm just saying that, you know what? The men actually went out there and did the physical labor with the whole thing there. After the groom had made the covenant, he had drank the cup, and he had paid the price, he would make a little speech to his bride. Now watch this now. Now he made a covenant, they drank from the cup, and he paid the price, and he would make a speech to the bride. That he was going to leave her for a long time and go back to his father's house. So any of this sounds familiar? Okay, so we have a situation where the Messiah said, listen, you know what? I also must go back to my father's house. All right, so what I'm trying to do is show the parallels here on how the father and the son are communicating with the bride, the nation of Yashra'al, and how we need to also portray the same things when we now engage in relationships with women. All right, there's a law and order to things. My brother Zakani has 4 beautiful daughters here. We got 4, right? 4 beautiful daughters?
Yeah, 3 of them are here.
Yes,
Right.
and again, he being the head of the household, anybody was to be interested in his daughters, they would have to go, to Zakani here. Him and his Isha, they would talk and say, listen, you know what? These are the preliminaries, for example. And after he had went through this procedure here, he was going to leave the woman for a long time and go back to his father's house. He was going to build a bridal chamber for her, right? Again, he was going to build a bridal chamber for her. a place where they could have their first coming together in marriage. Before he left, though, he would tell her, I go to prepare a place for you. Now, the contract, the cup, and the money were her security that he would return no matter how long it took him to build the bridal chamber. So to show the parallels in this now, we see the 10 virgins. And it made mention now in Matthew 25, verse 5, it says, while the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered in sleep. But now, the bridegroom is leaving now to build a bridal chamber for the wife. He's going to prepare a place for her. Okay, the groom would have to finish the chamber and have it approved by his father. This is the reason why when you go to the book of Acts, the first chapter, the Talmudim of the Messiah said, are you come now at this time to restore the kingdom to Yashra'al? Now, we know that only the Father knows this, because again, when we begin to look at functions, what is actually happening is that when the Son goes to build this house or this bridal chamber for the woman, the Father has to give the approval that it's sufficient for the woman. At the end of the day, as we know, and Moray, he pointed out a couple of weeks ago, when we talk about the Father and the Son, it talks about a millennium reign. But after everything is done, the Son gives everything back to the Father. All right, so we have a situation where the Father is doing all of this for the nation of Yashra'al. He's building a bridal chamber for you. A place where it's an intimate room where the Father now wants to have this personal relationship with you. So what he wants to do now, he wants to bid you to this wedding, but the nation of Yashra'al don't want to attend the wedding. So he says, listen, you know what? All those that are willing to come, let them come. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, all right? Now, the groom would have to finish the chamber, okay, the bridal chamber, and have it approved by his father. I don't have any room here. We talked about this before. This is very, very important. When you look at the book of Bereshit, it has the letter Bet. Okay, that letter is enlarged, and we know that the word letter Bet means house, family. Oh, okay. We have the Bet, and the Bet represents house and family. Now, we don't see the first Hebrew alphabet or alphabet in there, but we have an aleph should be there, and when you add the aleph and the Bet together, you have Ab, which means father. All right. So the significance behind this is that the bride needs to know that she don't own the house. All right, that's not her house. This is the reason why the bride got kicked out of the house, because the scripture says that Yerushalayim waxed fat, and she kicked. She thought that the house belonged to her because she wasn't able to see the silent letter, the aleph. The aleph represents strength and authority. No house can run without strength and authority. All right? So there's a covering. The woman forgot the covering. And we can't have that. All right? So that's the reason why we're here tonight, not in the house, because, again, the bride, she forgot. You know, there was a covering there. You can't disrespect your covering. It's not, you just can't. Under no circumstances can you disrespect your covering. Let's prove that. This is going to the book of Ezekiel, the 16th chapter. Because we're talking about, don't forget, we're talking about some wicked people. And I'm not talking about them. They're dead and gone. I'm talking about just walking around right here today. Okay, we really need to get our acts together and find out and know whose house this is. Ezekiel, the 16th chapter, and I'm going to start with verse 7. No, verse 6. look at this. This is a wooing story, all right? We have now the groom trying to woo the woman. He wants to have a relationship with you. Watch how this whole thing plays out. And when I, which is the groom, passed by thee, which is Israel, I saw thee polluted in thy own blood. All right, I saw you in your filth. I said unto thee, when thou was in thy blood, chaya, or which means live. Yea, I said unto thee, when thou was in thy blood, live. And I have caused thee to multiply. Again, I. We have to identify these things. That I, that pronoun, or that personal pronoun there, or that pronoun there, I, is pertaining to the father or the groom. I have caused thee to multiply as the bud of the field, so we know who's responsible for that. And thou hast increased and waxen great, and thou art come to excellent ornaments. Thy breasts are fashioned, and thy hair is grown, whereas thou wast naked and bare. So, this growth, this new life that the bride is now seeing, is due to the cause of the groom. I've done all of this for you. Watch how it gets even tougher. And when I passed by thee and looked upon thee, behold, that time was the time of love. He loved the bride. And I spread my skirt over thee, so I was your covering, and covered thy nakedness. Yes, I swore unto thee, watch this now, I swore unto thee, and entered into a covenant with you, saith Yahuwah Elohim, and thou becamest mine. All right? Thou becamest mine. These are all words that we should always be able to look at. These are all idioms pertaining to marriage when it says, thou becamest mine. Verse 9, then washed I thee with water. Yes, I thoroughly washed away thy blood from thee, and I anointed thee with oil. So this is what the man is doing for the woman. He takes the woman, he cleans the woman up, and we see now a marriage ceremony. Part of the marriage ceremony is that the man pays the price. Okay, he builds the house, and he also anoints the woman with oil. He anoints the woman with oil, okay, because these are all marriage rituals that we're going to get into. I'm not going to say rituals, they're marriage ceremonies. Okay, they're marriage ceremonies, so the man anoints the woman. I clothe thee also with broidered work, okay, and I showed thee with badger skin. I girded thee about with fine linen, and I covered thee with silk. So these are all of the gifts, okay, that the groom is giving the bride. All of these now is a token of the love that the groom has for the bride. He's given her all of these gifts here. The same way that Isaac gave the family of Rebekah. These are all gifts. I decked thee also with ornaments, and I put a bracelet upon thy hands, and a chain upon thy neck. We know how we like jewelry, okay? And I put a jewel in thy forehead, and earrings in thy ears, and a beautiful crown upon thy head. Thus was thou decked with gold and silver, and thy raiment was of fine linen and silk, and broidered work. Thou didst eat fine flour, and honey, and oil, and thou was exceeding beautiful, and thou didst prosper into a kingdom. See what's going on here now. And thy renown, or your fame, went forth among the heathen for thy beauty, for it was perfect through my comeliness which I put upon thee, saith Yahuwah Elohim. Look what he's doing, all this for the bride. But thou didst trust in thy own beauty, and thou playedst the harlot because of thy fame, and pouredst out thy fornication on everyone that passed by. His it was. All right, and we know the whole street thing. You know what? There were some women out there. You know what? Listen, everybody can get that. Yep. You know, that's how polluted the nation of Yashra'al, and not just them. It's even happening today. Anybody can have you. Anybody can have you. you have taken the precious things of the Father, all right, and he gave it to the other nations. Jerusalem waxed fat and caked. Israel didn't understand that the house didn't belong to them. They was all in one accord with the Father as long as they followed Torah. If you don't follow Torah, you gotta go. No compromise. You gotta go. All right? The man is the provider. The man is the covering. Verse 16. And of thy garments thou didst take, and deckest thy high places with diverse colors, and platest the harlot thereon. The light's thing shall not come, neither shall it be so. I'm going to skip down a little bit. I'm going to go with verse 28. Verse 28. I'm just going to read down to 34. Thou platest no whore, also with the Assyrians, because thou was unsatiable. You couldn't be satisfied. And again, street terminology, listen, you know what, there was that one girl, she just could not be satisfied. Everybody ran through her. You just couldn't satisfy her. All right, she played a harlot, she was unsatiable. And again, when we begin to look at this now, how it runs with Scripture, we're also doing the same thing. We're Muslims, Baptists, Lutherans, Episcopalians, Jehovah's Witnesses, we're everything under the sun. Every single thing. But I don't see Jehovah's Witnesses in the Scriptures. I don't see Lutherans in the Scriptures. I don't see Seventh-day Adventists in the Scriptures. I see none of those things here. None of them. The Father made a contract, a covenant with the nation of Yashra'al. Period. All right? Verse 17. She was unsatiable, and it also said, verse 17, that had also taken thy fair jewels of my gold and of my silver, which I have given thee, and madest to thyself images of men, and didst commit whoredom. Oh, I'm back second. 28, that's what I'm at. 28. Thou hast played the harlot also with the Assyrians, because thou was unsatiable. Yes, thou hast played the harlot with them, and yet could not be satisfied. Verse 29. Thou hast moreover multiplied thy fornications in the land of Canaan unto Chaldee, and yet thou was not satisfied therewith with that.
Wow.
Verse 30. How weak is thine heart, saith Yahuwah Elohim, seeing thou doest all these things, the work of an imperious, whorish woman. So the nation of Yashra'al is being compared to now as a whorish woman. All right? These are some very, very strong words, because we're not following collectively as a body the laws, statutes, and commandments. Verse 31. And that thou buildest thine eminent place in the head of every way, and makest thine highway a high place in every street, and hast not been as an harlot, in that thou scornest hire. But as a wife that committeth adultery, which taketh strangers instead of her husband, so this is what's being compared to now, thou gave gifts, listen to verse 33. They gave gifts to all whores, but thou gavest thy gifts to all thy lovers, and hirest them, that they may come into thee on every side of thy whoredom. And the contrary is thee from other women and their whoredoms, whereas none followeth thee to commit whoredoms, and in that thou givest a reward, and no reward is given unto thee, thou art contrary. You see what just happened here? A prostitute, okay, would say, listen, you can do whatever it is that you need to do, here's X amount, just give me X amount of dollars. The nation of Yashra'al is so opposite and so backwards is that we say, listen, I will pay you, all right, to commit all of these abominations. You can do that, I'll pay you. And the scripture says now, and the contrary is in thee from other women and your whoredoms, whereas none followeth thee to commit whoredoms, and that thou givest a reward, and no reward is given unto thee. So you're giving it up for free. We're trying to look at the present state of the nation of Yashra'al. And we're trying to remind the nation of Yashra'al that we're in a covenant. We're talking about returning. We're talking about, again, the word, this is my favorite word, the word vow. Okay? We make vows that we don't keep. My grandmother, back when I was about 9 years old, you know, down there in the South, there was a song that she used to listen to, and it kind of stuck with me. Now, I can't sing. I can't sing, but I'll do the lyrics. You might know it. It went something like this. He died on the cross, all right, to save us all. But what more do you want him to do? And so when I would hear that, I'm like, wow, he died on the cross to save us all. So what more do we want him to do? So when our elder here, our chief officer brought out the scriptures about returning into the Messiah, he fulfilled his part of the bargain. He brought you into a land. And it still mind boggles me to this day. What is it that you can't do, being that he gave all for you? I'm not getting that. It really bothers me when I hear brothers and sisters say, listen, you know what? Well, I can't do this and I can't do that. And these are senior brothers and sisters in the walk where they want to place terms and conditions on the Father after everything that we've been going over. Okay? My chief officer did about an hour and a half. And I'm going to be up here for a little while, keep teaching the same thing. More races will come up and do the same thing. I don't see how any person, or anybody can say, listen, you know what? There's certain things I still can't do. I just don't get it. We're not supposed to be here. We're not supposed to be here. Okay, so let's talk about some more of the responsibilities of a marriage. The groom is so important, all right? And again, the groom must follow Torah. That's going to be the key to it. When we talk about submission, as long as that man is following Torah, okay, that woman is supposed to be doing every single thing that that man asks him to do. Nobody hurt nobody's feelings, all right? Because submission is a real big problem. And what I'm here to do, all right, as a moray, and you look at the word that I like, the word shepherd, and you have the Hebrew word ra'ah, which means to see, but it also means a shepherd. And it is our responsibility, each brother that comes up here to speak, is to put things back into its proper perspective. Every man must follow Torah. He must follow Torah. Every woman must be in subjection to her husband following order. If she don't want to follow order, you might have a problem. The scriptures tells us that these things must be implemented. It's time for the true Israelites or the men to take their rightful positions. And I believe that when this begins to happen, I believe that our sisters will come around and begin to recognize that the Father is definitely moving. Because I don't, is there a sister here that has a problem with following an Ish? As long as he's following Torah? So everybody's good, right? Okay, all right. The groom would have to finish the bridal chamber and have it approved by his father. And watch this now. Men, we have responsibilities, okay? It had to be approved by the father. It had to be stacked with provision. The bride and groom were going to remain inside for 7 days. So, again, it was the groom's responsibility now to build the chamber. He had to furnish the bridal chamber and make it suitable for the bride. Because what's happening now is that, being that he got the approval from the father, he's now going to be taking the daughter out of his father's house into his house, which now makes him now her covering. Her father no longer has a covering over her. He is now the covering. All right? We can go to scripture to prove all of this. It had to be stacked with provision. The bride and the groom were going to remain inside this bridal chamber for 7 days. For 7 days, all right? You can read the story of Tobit and Tobias where they talked about the wedding ceremony that they had, and it lasted for 7 days, all right? 7 days. We have the Feast of Unleavened Bread happening for 7 days. Okay, we have the Feast of Tabernacles is 7 days, all right? So again, the number 7 is going to also be very important here. What did I got here with my notes? My notes is kind of bad here. It took a quite amount of time to work on the part of the groom to build the first bridal chamber. If anyone asked the bridegroom the way that it worked, and we're going to show this in scripture, if anyone asked the bridegroom during the building process when he would be getting married, he would say, "I don't know, only my father knows." Sounds familiar?
Yep.
Okay. He could not go back and claim his bride until his father approved the chamber and said that the time was right. I'm going to read it again. He, the groom, could not go back and claim his bride until the father approved the chamber and said that the time was right. So again, I'm going to use an example because my brothers Arcade here and my sister here, Parag. Okay, they have three beautiful daughters. 3 beautiful daughters here. And what happened now is that, listen, you know what? Interested in one of your daughters here. Okay, I'm going to go through the proper protocol. I'm not going to go behind your back and do X, Y, and Z and everything like that. He said, listen, okay, then let me know a little bit more about yourself and everything like that. When you're able to take care of my daughters and everything like that, I will sit down. Well, you and your Yashra'al, we will have a wine ceremony. We talked about a salt ceremony. So there was a lot of different things that was going on. And you needed to make sure that I was able to take care of your daughter. Right? Very important. You don't want to give your daughter to somebody now that's sleeping in Weekway Park. I don't know no parks around Weekway Park. You don't want to do that.
Right.
Piedmont. Piedmont?
Piedmont.
Okay, yeah, you don't want to sleep in Piedmont Park, you know. Oh, exactly. This is what I'm talking about here. We're talking about responsibility, and we're talking about application, because there's a lot of people that are actually they say one thing and do another. And I do a lot of counseling, and sisters haven't done their homework, and then come to find out that the guy don't have nowhere to stay. Okay, they consummated the marriage in the back of a car, and then so we're just trying to show that there's a lot going on in Yashra'al. Again, we're going to keep on going. Okay, we have here, he would then go back and claim his bride until his father approved that the chamber and said it was right. Because of his work and payment, a bride knew she was loved and was prepared to wait for a long time. So waiting is also important. Okay, we don't want to just quickly jump into this physical relationship. Let's just make sure that everything is done accordingly. We get the chance to know one another, so that there's no mistakes later on down the line. Because once you're married, and I say I do, the dude don't want to work, you might be stuck. You have babies and all this other stuff now. Just get ready for a long ride. During this time, the bride waited with diligence because she had her gifts of security. Okay, the bridal price was paid, and she had a contract. Okay, so she just waited now for the house to be provided, or the bridal chamber, I like to call it. During this time, the bride waited with dignity. She would wear her veil whenever she went out. And we know now that this was also one of the part of the attire that Rebecca had when Isaac saw her. And she said, "Who is that?" She said, "Yeah, that's Isaac there." And it so that she put back on her veil. We know that in certain cultures, like in Islam, They have women where they wear the burqas, and they have the women that have the veils on. It means that they're married, and if they don't have the veil on, that they're available.
Right.
And so we do have codes and dress customs that we also, we're going to have to talk about that too a little bit later on down the line. But she would wear her veil whenever she went out in order that some younger man would try to initiate a contract with her. Now she was just called set apart. That's all she was doing now. She was just called set apart. She was consecrated. She was bought with a price. Okay? Yes, she was bought with a price. All right? We call it a dowry. In effect, she was no longer her own person. All right? Again, when this contract is made, she is no longer her own person. She's now going to leave, again, her father's house and come into covenant relationship with her husband, making the two bodies now one. And this is what the Father's trying to do with the nation of Yashra'al. So what the picture that I'm trying to draw here is that the type of relationship that the Father has with the Son and with the nation of Yashra'al is the same type of relationship that we should be having with our spouses, our Ishas and Ishas. The same exact way. Any other way outside of that is out of order. I can never see the Messiah disrespecting or getting out of order with the Father. I mean, everything has to be done, again, in decency and in order. In effect, she was no longer her own person, but an individual contracted to her bridegroom. She could conduct herself with due respect, and she used her time to think about marriage, the marriage life, and prepared herself for it. She always waited, being home every night, especially as time went on. So you may say, look, this woman, she's just waiting around for the groom to come. Absolutely. Let's go to the book of Ecclesiasticus. What's it, the Song of Solomon? Hold on for a second. Songs of Solomon. We're going to read this is talking about marriage all throughout the scripture. I'm just not saying some are not saying this. Here's a woman here, okay? This woman, she falls asleep. Let's give Songs of Solomon, the 2nd chapter, verse 10. My beloved spoke, okay? My beloved spoke and said unto me, rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away. So here we now have, again, when we begin to understand parables, what's actually happening in the Songs of Solomon, the 2nd chapter, verse 10. It says, my beloved, so this woman now is speaking of her beloved, and her beloved said unto her, rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away. So he wants to invite her now to a wedding. Okay, he wants to have this personal relationship with her. Now he says, for lo, the winter is past. All right, so we're talking about a harvest season. We're talking about seasons here now, festivals. For lo, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth. The time of singing of birds is come, so we're talking about spring. And the voice of the turtle is heard in the land. The fig tree putteth forth her green figs, and the vines with the tender grapes give a good smell. Now listen to what the groom is saying to the woman again. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. O my dove, thou art in the cleft of the rock, in the secret places of the stairs. Let me see thy countenance. Let me hear thy voice. For sweet is thy voice, and thy countenance is comely. Now I want to go down to chapter 5. The way that we look at the Songs of Solomon, and anybody is good with poetry, you should be able to understand that this is actually poetry. Like Isha, she writes poetry, and the art of poetry is beautiful. This is what this says. This is poetry in motion here. Verse 5, verse 1. Chapter 5, verse 1. I come into my garden, my sister, my spouse. I am gathered my myrrh with my spice. I have eaten my honey, or my honeycomb with my honey. I have drunken my wine with my milk. Eat, O friends, drink, you drink abundantly, O beloved. Now, this is the preparation again for a wedding. Well, watch verse 2. It says, I slept. All right? And I looked up that word, I slept. It's the Strong's number 3462, coming from the Strong's 3463. This is not a regular sleep. So we have a situation now where you're being bidden again to a feast. But this woman here, she slept a sleep of death. She fell asleep, just like the 10 virgins. 5 fell asleep and the other 5 were wise. So we should be able to now put together these parallels that's going on in Scripture, because it's all alluding now to the coming of the Messiah. This woman now fell asleep, but my heart waketh. So when she waketh, watch what happens. She says, it is the voice of my beloved that knocketh, saying, open to me, my sister. This is what the voice is saying. My love, my dove, my undefiled, for my head is filled with dew, and my locks with the droops of the night. I have put off my coat. So this is what the woman is saying. She fell in this deep sleep or slumber. She hears the voice of the groom. The woman says, I have put off my coat. The coat is going to represent wedding apparel. She's taken off her wedding apparel because it talked about she falling not just a regular sleep. She fell to sleep of death. Watch this. I have put off my coat. How should I put it on? I have washed my feet, and shall I defile them? My beloved now put his hand by the hole of my door. We're not going to get into that because people talk some crazy stuff. And then verse 7. Verse 5. I rose up to open to my beloved. Because again, he's outside. He wants her to now come out because he wants to invite her to this marriage here. So the woman now, she finally wakes up. I arose up to open to my beloved, and my hands dropped with myrrh, and my fingers with sweet smelling myrrh upon the handles of his locks. I opened to my beloved, but my beloved had withdrawn himself. So by the time now she's ready to now have this relationship with the groom, watch what it says. I opened to my beloved, but my beloved had withdrawn himself. He has left, he's gone. And he was gone. My soul faileth with when he spoke. I sought him, but I could not find him. I called him, but he gave me no answer. The watchman. Who would be the watchman in this case right here?
Israel.
Right, the prophets. Okay, what's happening here now is that I've sent to you, rising up early, all of my prophets saying, return, 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 come back to me. So by the time this woman wakes up, because she hears the voice, but she's fallen asleep. So when she finally comes to her senses now, she goes to look for the groom, and he's gone. And what we're trying to show here now, that there's going to come a point in this walk here where it's going to be too late. Now the watchmen that went about the city found me, and they smote me. They beat the woman, the nation of Yashra'al, because it got to a point where, listen, you know what, your time is up. Your time is up, and they wounded me, and the keepers of the walls took away the veil from me. So we don't want to be in a situation where the Father is calling, and you're not ready to go. You must always keep oil in your lamps. My sheep hear my voice. You don't want to be late with this with this walk here.
So,
Yes.
did the nation of Yashra'al, did they beat the watchmen?
Did they be? Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Right.
Yes, they did. Absolutely. Yes. Because the scriptures talk about where even the shepherds that was actually guarding the vineyard, they knew okay, that the Messiah was coming. And when they saw him coming from afar off, they made acknowledgement. They said, this is the heir. They called him the heir. But they also did to the heir as they did to the other servants that went to the guys that was actually tending the vineyard. And then the scripture says something very important. You killed the servants and you killed the heir. What do you think your end is going to be now? You killed the heir, the owner of the vineyard. Now, so we always now, when we look at how marriages work, the man gives the woman a contract, okay? He gives her a bridal price, and he goes to prepare this place. And we have a situation here where the groom now comes to, he wants to take the wife and bring her back into covenant relationship, but she didn't want to get caught or taken away from home. When the bridegroom came, the tradition was that he would come at night, even at midnight, and try to take her by surprise. Sort of like an abduction. Okay, I use that word a little loose here. Now, the bride was taken from her house. She would be waiting with her bridesmaids and her sisters and whoever she wanted to take, part in the wedding ceremony. And they would all have oil in their lamps in case the groom did choose to come at night. All right, that's going to be very important, at night. As the time went on, they were ready to go every night. And suddenly one night, the bridegroom would come. The bride's father and brothers, this is just a tradition. And we're gonna try to go through some of that. What time did we have it? Because the sun's starting to go down.
8:40, yeah, 8:43, 8:44.
Okay, I'm going to speed this up. The way that the tradition went is, and suddenly one night the bridegroom would come. The bride's father and brothers will look the other way as long as it was the young man with the contract. And the bride and her friends would be whisked off into the night. When the groom's party was close enough to the home of the bride to be heard, they would shout. And when the bride heard that shout, she knew that it was good and the marriage was about to take place. And this is what happened in the story of Tibet and Tobias. I'm going to speed this up a little bit. The bride and the groom would go into the chamber while the wedding party waited outside, okay? There's nothing freaky and crazy and anything like that, but there was the way that the ceremony happened, all right, is that the families will like wait downstairs or whatever the case might be, but you need proof of consummation, okay? And you know, you will consummate the marriage, you will come out and say, listen, you know what? It was a success, you know, she was a virgin and everything like that, and so everything is good. Everybody will come out and they will clap and say hallelujah and sing songs and things like that, so they would go ahead and proceed with the rest of the marriage. So again, it's nothing freaky when nobody is listening, and it was nothing like that. All right, I'm going to have to speed things up here a little bit. The bride and the groom will go into the bridal chamber while the wedding party waited outside. There will also be a large crowd of wedding guests, friends of the groom's father, assembled at the house awaiting the couple. Everyone would wait until the bridegroom would tell a trusted friend through the door that the marriage was consummated. Okay? Then the celebration would start. There were never any annulments. Every marriage had to start right. And this can all of this is in the story of Tibet and Tobias. Everything that I'm saying. I just have to speed it up here a little bit. I might have to close it up because it's really getting late here, and I don't want to miss that point in time. Exodus the 19th chapter. You know what? Let's do. Maureen might tackle that. Let's go to Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. Okay, the feasts are very important, all right? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to continue with this lesson about weddings and contracts and agreements and things like that a little bit later, because there's a whole lot that's going on here with the chuppah, the canopies, the salt coverings, the meats, and what actually happens with the families. I'm going to have to go into that a little bit later, okay? Because I want men and women to be properly prepared for marriage. And it's a long process, but it'll work for you in the end. Because our job as mores and elders and teachers and things like that, we want to make sure that you're getting yourselves with the right men. And men, we want to make sure that we have the right women. Because can two walk together unless they agree? Leviticus the 23rd chapter, verse 1, and Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, speaking to the children of Yashra'al, and saying to them concerning the feasts of Yahuwah, which you shall proclaim to be set apart convocation. These are my feasts and my festivals. 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is a Shabbat, a rest and a set apart convocation. You shall do no work therein. It is a Shabbat of Yahuwah in all your dwellings. In all your dwellings. In all your dwellings. And again, in all your dwellings. The Shabbat is a festival of Yahuwah. These are the feasts of Yahuwah, even set apart convocations, which you shall proclaim in their seasons. Seasons is Moedim. The 14th day of the first month at even is Yahuwah's Passover. Verse 6, and on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread. Until Yahuwah 7 days, you must eat unleavened bread. In the first day, you should have a set apart convocation. You should do no servile work therein, but you should offer an offering made by fire to Yahuwah 7 days. In the 7th day, a set apart convocation. You should do no servile work therein. And Yahuwah spoke to Moses, saying, speaking to the children of Yashra'al, and saying to them, when you be come into the land which I give it to you, and you shall reap the harvest thereof, then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of the harvest unto the priest. And he shall wave the sheaf offering before Yahuwah Elohim to be accepted for you on the morrow after the Shabbat. And we know that there's a big controversy where we have the Pharisees, we have the Sadducees, we have account with the Qumran community, and there's another group called Bocephsians, something like that. It starts with a B. And the way that they're doing it is that, how do you count the Omer? Okay? Some are saying that, no, we have the 14th where the lamb is killed, then you have the 15th. They're saying some have it, the Pharisees have it, that the 15th is a Shabbat. And then they count the next day as day one of the count. Now, my argument is this, is that the 15th is not a weekly Shabbat. So Shabbats is 7s, and this will have to be now a weekly Shabbat. But it gets even a little bit more complicated than that, because we have with the Qumran community, they waited until the Feast of Unleavened Bread was completely done. And then on that Shabbat, they began to count the 7 times 7 gives you 49, plus one more day gives you 50. Okay, that's just a quick run on that. It's getting dark. Mr. McCall, I'm going to have to shut it down, all right? And we'll continue this lesson a little bit later. But again, I just want everybody to understand and respect order. Understand that the festivals of Yahuwah are very important. Marriage is important. Vows are important. And we must just keep our vows. All right? We must keep our vows. And Aisha, she's going to come up and give us the next part of the program, so that we can say I do all over again, right? We all gonna say I do. Everybody's good, right?
Yep.
Nobody's gonna go home and say, listen, you know what, I don't want to be part of the I don't want to do that whole reenacting there.
Let's give Kasala. Okay. So now we're going to, I guess we're going to bring the Feast of Shavuot in, and then we can go downstairs and do the entertainment.
Right. Yeah, we're ready for you. We're ready for you.
I've been waiting for this.
Oh, what's next? Sorry.
The entertainment.
Okay, so all right, we're gonna say the yeah. So Mr. McCall, what we're gonna do now is just proceed to go downstairs. All right, to the hall there. Okay.
Thank you.